السلام عليكم. الرجاء جعل أجهزة الهاتف على وضعية الصامت. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly put your mobile phones on silent or turn them off, please. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of His Excellency Professor Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, the Director General of the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, we would like to welcome you this evening to a lecture entitled The Georgia-UAE Partnership, Creating a Shared Future in an Inconsistent World, to be delivered by His Excellency Giorgi Margvelashvili, the President of Georgia. Giorgi Margvelashvili was elected as the President of Georgia on October 27, 2013. The former Vice Premier and the Minister of Education and Science, Giorgi Margvelashvili is a strong Democrat and a reformer. In May 2013, Giorgi Margvelashvili was named as a presidential candidate by the coalition Georgian Dream, and he confidently won the elections with a 62.18% of the votes. President Giorgi graduated from Tbilisi State University in 1992 and obtained his degree in philosophical sciences. Throughout the period from 1993 to 1994, he continued studying at the Central European University, Czech Republic, Prague, and in the period from 1993 to 1996 in the Georgian National Academy of Sciences. In 1998, he obtained the academic degree of Doctor of Philosophic Sciences from the Tbilisi State University. Throughout the period from 1996 to 1997, he taught philosophy and cultural studies at Tbilisi Free University, and in the period from 1995 to 2000, held the position of the local government expert in the Tbilisi office for the National Democratic Institute. From 2000 to the year 2012, Giorgi Margvelashvili worked at different positions at the Georgian Institute of Public Affairs. President Giorgi was involved in politics before the parliamentary elections of November 2003, when he was the member of the opposition party led by the chairman of the parliament, Zurab Zhvania. President Giorgi openly criticized the government, which was under the rule of Mikhail Saakashvili, and considered it to be corrupt and authoritarian. Now, today's lecture, last year, Georgia and the United Arab Emirates celebrated the 25th anniversary of their establishment of diplomatic relations. Throughout this period, both countries have developed historical ties and intensified trade and economic relations. Georgia's integration into the world's liberal markets and its geostrategic location attracts investments from the UAE. The Black Sea and Caucasus region are important for trans-regional and transcontinental cooperation. Georgia provides access to the Black Sea to 8 landlocked countries out of 14 on the Eurasian continent and serves as a gateway between Europe and Asia and a crossroad for international transit routes. Both Georgia and the UAE are unique as they play significant roles in trade and economic partnerships as regional centers for economic cooperation. Despite their geographical distance, both countries should explore new opportunities in all areas of mutual interest. Georgian President Giorgi Margvelashvili will offer his views on the challenges and future perspectives for trans-regional partnership and the importance of accelerating joint efforts to invest in new cooperation mechanisms, creating a shared future in our inconsistent world. So now it gives us great pleasure and honor to invite His Excellency to deliver his speech. The floor is yours, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here and to engage in this very interesting discussion with the privileged audience and to strategize about the future that would bring prosperity to my people, to this country, and would bring future solutions to many nations that are willing to be engaged into this peaceful and future-targeted cooperation. Let me start with my first impression being here in the Emirates. It is overwhelming. My first descending here and the impression that you get from the great commitment of your people, and the great work that has been done here, and the tempo of developments here are really impressive. they impress you and they give you hope and they give you feeling of how much can be done when you have a targeted view and when you have a view that is concentrated to the better and the future of the society. Also, it is very, and I was also overwhelmed with the openness and friendship and the way that our plans and projects and visions were embraced during those meetings where we had during this day. So I am very excited with what I have seen and also excited with the plans that we have been discussing. What are the opportunities? As it was already mentioned, Georgia plays a very significant role in a very important region, a region that is connecting global economies of Asia and economies of Europe, and more locally economies of the Caspian Sea and the resources that are around Caspian Sea in the Central Asia, with the Black Sea, and as it was mentioned, giving the coast and giving trade opportunities to numerous nations on the both sides, East and West. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, our leaders, and very much our late President Eduard Shevardnadze, which was a very strategic thinker, has very actively engaged in cooperation between Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey, and created the link which was uniting the energy resources of the Caspian Basin with the opportunities of export from the Black Sea and from Turkey. This was done some 25 years ago. For these 25 years, we have committed very strongly to this vision and to the vision of creating opportunities to the countries east of Georgia as well as west of Georgia. We have invested in development of the transportation system, in development of communications, in development of the infrastructure for this cooperation, and now we can say that Georgia has become one of the most interesting and prospective parts of the global Euro-Asian project, which is happening with active engagement of China, and which is the project of One Belt of One Road, including not only far eastern trade routes, but also routes that, let's say, start from Afghanistan and go through Turkmenistan, through Caspian, and engage and finalize in Georgia, and many other opportunities that we are very open and very dedicated to engage. Not only we very actively develop the infrastructure for these cooperations, but we have also properly targeted our policy towards this kind of global projects. A policy which is always oriented on harmonizing the tariffs, harmonizing legislations, creating opportunities for different business sectors, as well as creating a great business environment within the country. With all this, of course, we have a clear vision of where and what we want to be in the future. I was just discussing with our great hosts and friends our history. We are a nation that is starting its statehood in the 3rd century BC. So we have been on this place for the last 23 centuries and have gone through very complicated times, and our main goal is to create more friends and more allies, more countries interested in stability and security of this small nation, and the countries that understand the strategic importance of the location of my homeland. So while developing those projects and while engaging and embracing our partners from East and from West, we increase the number of the states that are crucially interested in stability of the region. are interested in stability of my country. In 2019, it will be the top project that is starting from Baku and that will be finalizing in Italy and in Greece, basically securing the south of Europe with energy solutions. It means that we'll have more supporters and more friends, and we are also very actively trying to engage more countries into these trade opportunities. Coming here and discussing with and strategizing with friends, we here we see great things that we can share with each other. For instance, the experience that could be shared concerning the way of managing logistics, of the way of concentrating, creating a hub for concentration of these big trade opportunities that are in the region. Also opening investment opportunities to our friends which are already active in Georgia and can bring Georgian experience back home. One of other interesting parts of our trade policy and economic policy is that we are very open for free trade opportunities. Georgia is a small market of 3.5 million people, but investing in Georgia means investing in a market that has free trade with Europe, that has free trade with Turkey, that has free trade with the ex-Soviet Union countries, that has free trade with China. So it means that we are giving a gateway and opportunity and opening to major global economies. But we are not only talking about the future plans and partnerships and the opportunities that we share with each other. We are also talking about the challenges. And these challenges are very important for Georgia because as a nation with small population, we are located in a very strategic region, located on the crossroads. We are looking for further security. We are looking for the mechanisms to secure our stability. The challenges for Georgia are basically the new solutions that are based not on the principles of the rule of law, but the new solutions that are based on the new power games that are happening in the region. I am, of course, representing a country that is 20% occupied. It is occupied by a neighbor country, a nuclear superpower, and occupied with violation of every mandate of international law and with violation of any kind of even historic logic. It's even worse. It's with the violation of economic logic because occupation of Georgia did not bring anything to Russia. Russia has the biggest territory. They don't need to occupy other countries. But this is a precedent that is very much problematic for Georgia, for its stability. Because if we don't come to general respect of rule of law, if we don't come to respect of the treaties that we sign with each other, if we don't come to the respect of the international organizations and international forums which are going to be securing stability for countries that, let's say, don't have nuclear power, that countries that don't have big enough armies to fight superpowers, then we are facing instability in the years to come. And this instability is far beyond expected range of possibilities that can happen. So what we are doing as a nation and as a state, we are very actively outreaching to our friends all around the world, and world is much more smaller, and globalization made it much more smaller, much more active communications that people can have with each other. So we are outreaching to our friends all around the world, engaging them in support of the rule of law, engaging them in support of the goodwill policies, in condemning treating smaller nations or nations who cannot, smaller nations or smaller neighbors with a harsh military power. And we are, I would say our diplomacy is very successful in that respect. We have reached quite a level of support among globally the international community. And we are strengthening our path in this respect. We are trying to become more convincing. And while convincing our friends and allies, we say that if we don't come to joint solutions, these problems that could be happening in Georgia or could be happening in Caucasus can then echo in other parts of this global world. So when I'm coming to the great nations and great states like I am today, I'm always looking for this opportunity to share common values, to share common hopes, to share common principles of the relationships between the states, as well as to build future plans. And my being here is very pleasant and very perspective-oriented, because we look at the future with the same position. We look at the future from position of building peace, building stability, showing society what are the future plans and perspective, and creating projects that will benefit all of us and that will bring solution to all of the nations engaged in this discussion. So basically, this is something that I wanted to share. I think that I would leave more opportunities for questions and answers, and be happy to discuss together with you and to strategize about our future opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now we open the floor for any comments or anybody who has a question. We urge you, of course, to keep your questions and comments brief so that we allow more people to get their comments through. والآن نفتح طبعا باب المناقشة. Yes, sir. This gentleman here.
Good evening, Masal Khair. My name is Marko Selakovic, coming originally from Serbia, from the Balkans. Former chairman of Balkan Caucasus NGO network, so I remember engagement of Dr. Margvelashvili from the NGO sector prior to this formal politics. My question for the global world, as per your opinion and as per your experience, can the lessons learned in previous strategic partnerships, strategic alliances between the emerging countries, which are emerging in different ways, like Georgia and UAE do, like Serbia and UAE do, is it the model for connecting and for disruption of the pattern of negative behavior, negative attitude, which happens in this inconsistent world? Is this key for long-term sustainability of small countries or not? Thank you.
Which is the model, sorry? Which is the model?
Strategic alliances between smaller emerging countries which have emerging pathway in the different way, like UAE, for example, and Georgia.
Well, I believe that this is a solution, it's not only model, but it's also a solution for future peaceful development of the global world. We are countries that look for stability. And we are looking for this stability and security for the purpose of bringing solutions and for bringing better future to our citizens. What is an alternative to this? And when we are looking at the alternative, the only alternative is destabilization, going back to Cold War. And Cold War maybe was called between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, but it was not called in some other places because it was very often there were places, the proxy wars where people were dying and they were killed. What is the alternative to these solutions? It is either Cold War or regional superpowers which cause problems and cause terrible perspective once again for the citizens, and bring no whatsoever solution. So, a small country, we very much count on the rule of law, but also we count that the rule of law will be protected very principally by the major players. As a small country, we are looking at the opportunity and we are very actively investing in global security. We are one of the biggest contributors to the peacekeeping forces in Afghanistan. My small nation of 3 or 4 million is contributing much more troops to Afghan operation than other nations do. And we do this for years. At the same time, we are one of the most active aspirants of the NATO. We are one of the most active countries in EU. So bilateral relations are always important, but we need more security umbrellas, at least Georgia in this specific region. We need more active forms of securing global stability when small countries are not left one-to-one with a very aggressive neighbor. It is, in case of Georgia, this is Georgia vis-à-vis Russia. This is Ukraine vis-à-vis Russia. This is Moldova vis-à-vis Russia. And we are seeking out all of we are jointly seeking out and trying to find more supporters to protect and to forward our truth that a strong country could not be destabilizing and occupying its neighbors. I hope that by creating numerous precedents of this cooperation, we will be able to prevail the attitude of the Cold War and sentiment of the Cold War that unfortunately we are hearing so actively from Moscow. Because if this logic continues, it will not be only a problem with Georgia and Ukraine. If the logic of the new Cold War starts to be active, it will be a problem globally. Because Cold Wars are the wars of the proxy wars, and the proxy wars are something that is going to bring terrible future to millions of people that are living, whose lifestyle and everyday life will be destroyed, like it has happened in many times and places.
Any other questions? أي سؤال أو مداخلة؟
Any other questions?
What are the current security concerns? I mean, how is it? Do you think it's affecting the economic stability in your country at the moment, or in the investments that are pouring in, or is it not?
It's a good question. I mean, we are not poor on the investment side. Fortunately, we have countries who are investing, but we want, of course, more investment. There was a crisis in the region, and we had but last year it sort of stabilized, and we have 5% GDP growth. As I told you, we are not also lacking global engagement in major projects, because we are part of this bigger communication, the One Belt, One Road. But if we were in a different environment, I'll tell you that our GDP growth would be double digit. We would have, let's say theoretically, we would have much more active engagement of Caspian routes into Georgia, because now we are basically working on with our partners on the Western Caspian side. But the Eastern Caspian, where there are huge energy opportunities, they still need to be supported. So I would say that we are not unhappy, but if we had more security and stability, Georgia would just flourish in a great way. It will happen, inshallah, sometime.
Inshallah, and we do hope that is the case. Any questions from the audience, please? أي سؤال أو مداخلة؟ تفضل. Yes, please.
Danny Abu Bashara from already, Mr. President, I visited your country last summer during 2 weeks, and I discovered Tbilisi, Batumi, Kudauri, and Gori, and all the area in Georgia. Is very fantastic country and very safe for tourists. And but I feel that the Georgian people sometimes I feel that this mix of civilization. Maybe Georgia, same is a small nation, but he don't know what he want to make for future. Maybe for him, we are European, we are Asian, we are more close to Russia by culture or more close to Europe by culture. So, and I see also in my road to Gori, the Georgian refugee area were coming from Abkhazia and South Ossetia. And by history, I read very well the history in Google regarding your country. For your opinion, what's the future of your nation? Example, also Batumi is autonomous area in Georgia. What's the common value to unify your country again? To unify South Ossetia, Abkhazia, and all area of Georgia to begin again one nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for visiting my country and for looking so close to my country's history. I also visited your country 40 years ago. I was very small at that time. You know, I mean, you are absolutely right. We have our culture. Our culture, as I told you, we are in this place. We are living in this land for the 23 centuries. And this land was always very important for major empires. And it was a crossroad, and it was always a land that was a strategic connection. And so you are absolutely right. I mean, our culture unites our culture unites European and Oriental elements in itself. Of course, we are a predominantly Christian nation, and we became Christian 16 centuries ago. It was very important for my nation. This choice was very important because at that point we identified that we are different from the region. And so we could shape ourselves more through this choice. But now we have Muslim Georgians also an integral part of our society, very important and integral part of our society. But Georgia is a very unique country by its identity because it has been able to unite very many cultures and civilizations, and this is the benefit of Georgia. This is how Georgians understand our nation. When they are talking about the most important times in our history, they are talking about Georgia, which was united by the king who respected every religion, who respected every ethnic group in our country. This is something that to which we are looking as an icon. So how can we recreate this back? Of course, it's a challenge because Russia is very actively sponsoring the groups that are in confrontation with the mainland, with the central, with the nation. They are sponsoring this and they are determining these conflicts. And it is very painful because we want to embrace them back and to bring them back into our nation, which once again always was a nation that united many different ethnic groups, many different religions around the main core Georgian identity. So what we have to do is to continue pressuring Russia, to pressure them peacefully, and to force them to leave Georgia and to go out of Georgia and to take their tanks out of Georgia like they did it in Berlin, like they have done it in the Eastern Europe. We live here for 23 centuries. We will be continue living here. So we will be forcing Russians to obey, to leave Georgia, to leave it back to Georgians, and we will recreate the country. And as a Georgian, I know that this will happen. Always we were able to recreate our nation, to recreate our statehood, and in this case we will prevail. It's simply, I don't know exactly how many time it will go until Russia will understand that occupying Georgia does not bring them anything. There is nothing that they benefit from this. We are pushing on them, and they will go away, I believe.
Any other questions, please, from the audience? أي سؤال أو مداخلة؟
Any questions, please?
تفضل أخوي. نعم.
Regarding the volume of the trades between the UAE and Georgia.
Well, we have a couple of very interesting investments, both on both sides. There are businesses that are very active. I think it's your investment volume is up to, for the last years, it's up to 860 million or something like that. Yeah, 860. The investments are growing. There are a couple of very successful examples that you have. The trading in the trade centers that have been developed. I'm also informed that you are investing into the building and development industry. You are exporting some meat, lamb and sheep, I believe. So we are looking at more active engagement of UAE in Georgia. I think that this was a good start to show your businesses what is the environment, how friendly we are with businesses, how friendly we are with the foreigners, what is the good climate on investment, on trade, on the taxation. I believe that we are going to a new level when you will be looking at the opportunities from these intercontinental trade routes, and start thinking about what could be done in the management or in the port sector, in transportation sector, value added, logistics. This is all to be developed. And this is a very good time to start engaging into this option. So I think that with the good opportunities that we have already shown each other, also tourism, yeah, you are actively engaged in the tourism industry in Georgia. Georgia had a double of the number of the tourists, 7 million tourists last year. So there are all these opportunities, and I believe with the good experience, now we are expecting a upgrade to the higher level in our bilateral trade relationships.
Any other questions, please? سؤال أو مداخلة.
Any questions or comments?
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. It was an honor to have you here at the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. We learned a lot from your lecture, and we do hope that we do see you again. And if there's any last words you would like to address the audience with, this is your chance to do that, sir.
I just want to say thank you because it is an exceptional hospitality that I'm getting here. And we do definitely have the culture of hospitality in Georgia, and the guest is very important and saint for us. But I am impressed with what I'm seeing here, and I'm impressed with the level of openness that I have witnessed during this day. Thank you, and thank you for a very interesting discussion. Shukran.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.